So the reason wavetables are cool is you can just, oh, wrong one. You can easily change the timbre like smoothly. So instead of having a different synth for all those sounds, you can move one between them, which can give you like a lot. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with the basics, I guess, of making a decent sort of bass. So usually you'll notice that if you go down sort of too low, then a sine wave won't sound very loud at all. On Ableton, it's not a perfect sine, but yeah. What we can do to like change this is add sort of a triangle or even a saw wave on top of it. But you also want a filter, like a low pass filter, so that it's not too harsh. So, like now that's not too bad, and you can already make a really cool bass sound just modulating like the frequency and the waveform. I always tend to go by loops. Right, and it's nothing too special right now.
Can I just ask a question, Loki?
Yep.
How I'm completely new to Ableton, so none of this is all new to me. But so when you're switching between screens, what are you pressing to change? Just so I know what.
Oh, wait. What do you mean? How do you
Well,
mean?
you just so yeah. How did you get back to this?
Ah, right. So, yeah. So at the bottom, you've got your effects and will show up here, and the clip that you've selected, the notes will be on the piano roll.
Right.
This bit, so you click on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just these two.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mouse was too quick for me. I didn't notice that's where you were going, and I was like, how's it changing?" Thank you.
No, it's
And you mentioned about a frequency pass or something.
yeah, low pass.
What is that?
Okay, so it's literally just a filter that it lets frequencies below a certain level through and cuts out all the higher ones. And this has like a certain resonance about a particular frequency. So that's gonna like accentuate that. Like for the most part, you don't want a massive resonance because that's gonna make sort of like mixing and mastering a bit of a nightmare. Because you'll have this massive like peak that's drowning everything else out. But like acidy house and techno does use use resonance, but it's in a careful sort of way. I mean, just think of resonance as like where the vibrations at its peak. Like, does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So now I want to automate this. I'm gonna automate the wavetable position. So that's this here, right? So what I want to do is click. So right click and then show automation. It'll take you here. And now you've got your you can just modulate it as you want, okay? And you just draw it in. Oh, that's not actually what I wanted. So you already get a kind of interesting sound just by literally just by changing your position in the wavetable. And now if you want to like change that even more, you could do that for the frequency. And I want the same pattern, so I'm just gonna copy it. Remove, copy it and paste. Move it down a bit. So we'll see how this sounds. That should line up. Yeah. So now you've got like this kind of rhythmic pulsating sort of a sound just from modulating two parameters. I like to do things like that quite a lot. Same principle in Serum too, which I tend to use for my bass, just because it's really easy to get a phat sound. Okay, so I'm gonna go for a sort of plucky, dark bass sound. So I'm gonna basic shapes, analog, basic shapes again. Don't need anything fancy. Yeah, and gonna want filter. We want the filter to work on both of these. I usually go for a low 24 just because it's clean. Hang on, I'll turn that down a bit. Yeah, I'll show you the difference actually. So that's a low 6, 12, 18, 24. for a nice sort of clean sound, that's what you want. So for pluck, you want the envelope of the the actual note to be kind of short. So the more kind of thin and narrow it is, the more stabby it is, obviously. And for my second envelope, I'm gonna have it very, very, very short.
Can I ask another question that might be a bit silly, but why is it called an envelope?
Because it kind of encompasses you know what if I break out Microsoft Paint for a second? Okay, so new share. Okay, so right, so you've got so this is your envelope here, the group, right? So you've got like a wave group, which is what this would be called, and then the gap in between that and the next sound, right? So you can say that this is like one sound, and like the envelope basically just determines how suddenly it comes in. Does it like fade in like that and then fade away, or does it kind of spike like that, be really loud immediately and then disappear, or is it very like soft and smooth, like rising and falling? It's basically like dynamics in music, or like I don't know if this would be staccato, and that would be like just a very kind of long, drawn out bow on the violin. Does that make sense? Okay, to share Ableton again. Oh, why did I open Paint? Is that loaded, you guys? Yeah. So here I've put this spiky envelope on the cutoff, so it goes up really high and then really low again, really fast, and it creates this plucky sound. All right. And that's how to make a really sort of basic plucky bass. Now, if you wanted to kind of go ham on it, you can add this EQ, which you can obviously do externally, but I like the EQ that's in Serum, so I frequently use it. That doesn't sound better, does it? So I'm actually going to lower this, add a bit of a resonance, not too much, you don't want to kind of oversaturate the sound. And I'm gonna add a high cutoff And again, I really don't want any resonance on that. Right. Something else that helps that Serum has is drive. Like that makes a huge difference in volume. So you can use that to just make your bass louder in the mix, because otherwise it can kind of like struggle a bit against the other things, like the drums, which I'll get into in a bit. Are you familiar with side chaining at all? No? Andrew? Oh, I think you're muted right now, actually.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that term?
Side chaining?
I've not used it. I've heard of it, but yeah, I've never used that.
Okay. So right. So I'll talk to you about that. Gonna step away from that synth right now, go back on this one. And yeah, so I'm just gonna put a drum rack for my kick. Gonna have a very, very simple, just 4 to the floor. Right. None of those are quite right. Gotta find the right sound. That's also important. Like if your sound doesn't sound how you want it to start off with, don't bother like trying to twist it into something you like. Find something you like to begin with and work with that. I think that might work. So at the minute, nothing is side chained. So yeah, nothing's side chained. It's all just a bit like. It's all a bit flat. So what I'm gonna want to do is go into my audio effects. You want the compressor. And I pretty much always just put on mildly aggressive, but it just doesn't matter. And I just kind of tweak it on one. Importantly, you want to sidechain the compression. And you want to sidechain it. You want audio from drum rack, and then you want to choose. Oh, hang on. Right. If I put another sound on here. choose the right one. So I want to choose the kick. Post FX. So that's after all of the effects have been applied to it. Like if you choose pre-FX, it's gonna go with the sound, like the raw sound. You want the actual sound that's in your track. So the threshold changes basically when the compression kicks in and like squashes your bass, squashes your sound, right? So if it's really high, then the kick isn't really going to change much. But if it's low, then it'll kind of come in sooner, basically. And now the magic is in the output. So what's happening here is basically the kick comes in, it comes into this compressor, the compressor squashes this sound during the kick. So while the kick's playing, this is a lower volume. And if you change the attack, also changes how fast compressor comes in. Release. Well, it's just not releasing here. I've set the release to 3 seconds, which is longer than is between each kick, so it's constantly compressed. But if you turn it down, then the bass comes back out again through the light of day. Yeah. And that's pretty much it with sidechaining. And you can do it with absolutely everything or anything. Like if you want one sound to pop out against another sound, like say you've got some atmospheric chords going on and you have a melody that you want to play at the same time but also stick out, then you can sidechain the chords to the melody so that when the melody comes in, they get compressed and squashed. So each note of the melody sort of stands out a bit more, basically. Can do an example of that if you want the specifics. Okay. So I'm just going to use, for the sake of quickness, I will use, oh god, I haven't used these default sounds in so long, but right, use one of these. Right. You know what? I'm gonna make it so that I like this, and I want much longer. Oops. Make that go on for a bit longer. So 2 bars. So actually, this is a good place to talk about how do I move the sidebar so I'm actually doing this. Oh yeah. Okay. So LFOs are actually really important. An LFO is just producer jargon for low frequency oscillator, and a low frequency oscillator is one that is not a sound. Basically, it's modulating other sounds and parameters. So that comes back from like the old hardware synth days, where you had a number of oscillators in the circuit. So yeah, I'm gonna make this LFO modulate just quite over 4 bars, quite slowly. And I'm gonna modulate the frequency. So basically just using the LFOs to modulate the frequency, resonance, and other things like that. It gives you like motion over time. It is repeated, but like the cool thing is you can use LFOs to modulate other LFOs. So like the frequency of that modulation changes over time as well, which can lead to some really cool effects. But I won't get ahead of myself because I was still talking about side chaining. All right. So I might as well be Would I be lazy? I don't know. I'm just gonna use this. So it's just a simple, nice sound. Okay. So I need. Oh, I wasn't paying attention to my key. Alright. I've got C sharp and an F there. No idea what key that is. Oops. I can just do that. Right. My laptop's getting a little angry. Hang on. I will close my Firefox. It will close. It's not even closing. Oh, there we go. All right. So, got the melody, got the chord, and now I want a sidechain. So, just gonna get a compressor. Put it onto the chord. And click sidechain, audio from. This time it's a soft chord. Is that clipping for you too on the audio, or is that fine?
No, it's clipping for us, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I can do to help that. Right. Put a limiter on the master. Literally just keeps it at 0 dB, so it's never clipping. Okay, my CPU is still freaking out, but it's fine now. Okay, now my computer is not happy. Don't know what I can do about that, unfortunately. That's fine. Right. It'd be good if this was more sustained. It's fine for a bit and then it starts having a tantrum. Could just be the. Yeah, well, it's just the fact that I'm doing Zoom and and this at the same time. But anyway, so now our chords are sidechained to the melody, so that they kind of phase in and out with each other. Because you don't want sort of clashing sort of frequencies in the high end, so it'll kind of muddy and mix up. So sidechaining the chords to the melody is quite a good Well, now it's freaking out again. What was the point in this laptop? Cool. Right. So another cool thing you can do in terms of sound design, is to change things based on like the velocity. So that's the MIDI velocity of the note. I'll just go on this bass sound for now. Okay. And I'll stop everything else. No. Stop. Stop. Right. So it should be able to handle just one thing at a time. Right. So yeah, velocity. Just come up with a generic bass line. So at the moment, the velocity is only going to change the volume, and not very much at that. It's not really doing anything at all, actually, is it? So yeah, but you can make it do some cool things. Although it's actually easier to do this in the wavetable. So I'll show you that. The reason it's easier in the wavetable is because you get this matrix here. Oh, hang on. No, I'm being an idiot. Right. Yeah. So you want a matrix. I don't know why it's called a matrix. It just is. So for that, you want the source to be velocity, and this changes the amount of modulation, right? And this changes, and this is the destination. So it's like, what do you want your velocity to modulate? And for this, what do I want to do? I think I just want to do the filter cutoff or resonance, maybe. I'll try resonance. Do filter resonance. Okay. So now I've got the velocity changing the resonance on the low pass. So you kind of hear that bow, bow. So like, hear these? Yeah, you can really hear that. So these notes have a very different sort of flavor to these high velocity ones. And just to make it more obvious, I will also make the velocity change the cutoff. We want filter cutoff. Now you can really hear that, like, the velocity is changing these parameters. So this works really well for live performance, or if you just want to like put something in live. Now that sounds a lot better. Even just change it. See, this sounds like it has much more of a personality to it. This. So yeah, so that's it, just playing a clip, but equally, if you're using a MIDI controller, so yeah, now you've got different quality of a note based on how hard you're hitting the keys or buttons or whatever. So that really helps with the kind of the expressiveness of everything. Yeah, so let me think. Yeah. Right, so if you wanted to do something like this, but without, doing that, then a shortcut is to use good old LFOs. So I'm just gonna duplicate this for the sake of easiness, but I'm going to remove the velocity modulations there. Gone. And instead, I'm going to use the LFO. So you can either do this in the matrix, or you can do it a kind of easy way in Serum, which is just dragging. So you just kind of can drag it over to what you want to modulate. But you can also do it here and just choose. So, okay, currently LFO1 is at a quarter bar, which is too fast. I'll put it to 2 bars, see how that sounds. Oh, forgot to do the thing. So I'm just going to want the same note. And all the same velocity. So now it's giving me that effect without me having to kind of change a load of stuff and automate a load of stuff. And if you want to be kind of interesting with it, these are all the same length, so you can modulate the length of the note as well, right? So I'm just gonna do that the easy way, and I'm going to drag LFO2 to the hold on the envelope, and I'll just play that and show you. And it's okay. It's you can't really hear it because of the filter cutoff here. So what I'm going to do is just put the same on that envelope. All right. It's really changing how kind of long the notes are lasting for, especially the low end because of this filter cutoff. Right, and I can also change the decay. And I'm gonna change it. Change it the opposite way, so it's going down and decreasing. So that's already kind of funky and weird. And that's just with 2 basic LFOs. And I'm going to use LFO3 to modulate yeah. So I'm going to modulate. Wait. Hang on. Oh, hang on. I can do this quite easily through here. Right. So LFO3 is going to change the LFO2 rate. So I'm changing the rate of this. And put it on 4 bars. So that's without the modulation. What happens if I do LFO1 instead? That sounds very odd, doesn't it? It sounds almost random, right? Yeah. And like that is with actually zero randomness. So there's a lot you can do just by modulating your modulations. It's just a really good thing to play around with. And yeah, a lot of fun really, because you can create all sorts of different rhythms and sounds that you just can't really replicate otherwise. So yeah, any other questions so far?
No, I haven't. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. I got my earphones in. I wasn't sure if that was cutting out the mic.
No, I can hear. Right, so yeah, so is that all sort of dandy so far?
Yeah, lots to play with.
Yeah.
A lot.
Mm.
All right. So yeah, LFOs are great. Just mess around with them really, because I mean, when I first started sort of producing, I rarely used LFOs, and I did all of the automation like myself by sort of like say got all of this. I would basically just go along all of this, kind of clicking about, changing like the frequency or whatever by hand instead of just using an LFO to do that for me. Because like, yeah, sometimes you want it to be like not totally the same every time, but like often an LFO will just do the job perfectly well. And it's not often you want a sound going the whole length of a tune anyway. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about distortion. Right. So, yeah, I'll put put the drums on. Okay. So distortion is basically kind of just adding frequencies to your sound. You can use Ableton's one. Yeah, so you would want there's overdrive or dynamic tube. So basically you can just like fill out anything that's sort of lacking. The drive, and just the volume. And obviously all of this is something that you can modulate as well. Tone effects, so how many different, like how high the frequencies are. Yours a bit lower, 100% higher. And then dry wet is how much of the original signal is getting through. So this is just the original. This is the overdrive. Original. 100% overdrive. I've got low pass. Without it. With it. And ideally you want it before side chain. So basically this is the order that the effects are applied in. You want most of the effects before your compressor, because you want your compressor to be acting on like the full signal, not just the raw sound. Right, so that's the Ableton overdrive for distortion. It's quite good. It's quite good. The one I tend to use though is thermal. And now well, if you actually buy it, it's quite expensive, but if you find it free on the internet, then it's free. So say no more. Yeah, so this is thermal. It looks a bit weird, but just don't worry about that. Basically, what we want to worry about is this. Alright, so we've got band input. We can select. Again, it's just like this overdrive where you've got the frequency filter. You select the frequencies you want to affect. Shape. Thanks. I'll just let my laptop stop freaking out for a sec. All right. This one banded. There's all kinds of different distortions you can put on here actually, which, to be perfectly honest, I don't use a lot. So that's, you know, that's my fault, that's on me. So let's play with this, right? Mids are really coming out because of this this filter, this distortion that I've put on sort of mid to high end, which is, you know, it's a pretty cool effect. You can also change the dry wet, so that's just how much the plugin is affecting the input, and you can assign these wheels to pretty much anything. Okay, so I'll put whoa, my zoom thing keeps coming up. I'll put this on there. It's very much like Serum, you just drag and drop. No idea what this will do. And then macro 2, I'll put it on the high end here. Right. So all that does is kind of works. That's kind of a whole thing to mess around with in itself. Yeah, and this plugin has so much to play with, like so much. If you even wanted to buy it, probably be worth it if you can afford it. It is like a couple £100 if I remember, so a bit of an investment, but I really love it and I use it all the time, especially for drums. Now, and you can do this with any distortion, right? It doesn't have to be this one, but it's just the one that I like. So I'll put this on the drum rack. I'll show you just kind of generally what I usually do. under the kick in frequency. That's without. That's with. Huge, honestly. Without, with. Pretty massive difference. Sometimes you might want a bit high end as well. Often the key to both like sound design and sort of mixing and mastering is separating your low and your high frequencies. So say if you want to put an effect on this bass, there's a few ways that you can do it. But what I'll show you right now is just to filter out the high end and put the effect on that. So it'll be a little like this. EQ, audio effects, EQ. I'll use an EQ8. So I'm gonna want a high pass. So I want to cut out low frequencies. So this one will sound like this. And what I'm going to do now is put on some reverb. Anything will do. And I'm going to put this filter all the way at the start. So that this way I've got my filter first, then the reverb, then the sidechain compressor. So the reverb gets sidechained too and doesn't muddy up the mix. If there wasn't the high pass, then the lows would be way too muddy and it would not sound as good. So let's see so you have the reverb acting on the high end, but it's not getting all down the lows and making everything all muddy. So yeah, that's a really good kind of essential production tip. Just separate out your lows and your highs. Sometimes you want to separate the lows, the mids, and the highs. And sometimes you want to do something like a bit different, and you can actually record this this track with the effects on it as audio, right? So to do that, it's quite easy. All you need to do is put your audio to, and then the audio track that you're using to record it. So, and then you want to arm it so that it can record an audio from yeah. So if I record, then yeah, see how it's no longer getting my voice because the audio is from the wavetable. Right. So all that's done. Is just record the effects. But the reason why this is cool is because now I can like chop it up. All right. So this is the best sort of way to do it. Go on this view, the arrangement view, and then you can just kind of zoom in, like chop little bits out. Right, I'm doing this kind of randomly, but so you can just kind of get a weird chopped up sound.
Loki, can I just ask, how are you cutting bits out? Is there like a shorthand key that you're using?
You just select, and then you literally just copy and paste.
Great.
So Control C, Control V. Yeah. And if you wanted to like just split this up, you can also click split, and then it splits it where you put the split, if that makes sense. So yeah, you can put this into kind of any sort of rhythm that you want, and just get a weird. Sort of any, yeah. So I'm going to do something like this, right? Something a bit syncopated. Go at the start. Right. So if I unsolo that, just mute this. And consolidate. So if you consolidate it, it just kind of turns it all into one clip like that. So I can easily just copy and paste the audio into my clip view.
Yes.
now you've got something that sounds a bit different, but it still fits in with like the main sounds because it's derived from
Yeah.
the sound, right? So like that's one way you can create kind of cool atmosphere and rhythm by just recording the effects you add to like the original sound.
Mhm.
So you keep the original sound and you get all of these cool effects as well without sort of muddying everything.
Mm.
Yeah. Is that all clear?
Yeah, 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 I got that.
Yeah. Cool. It looks like that's about time.
All right. Oh yeah.
But I didn't get into everything that I wanted to talk about, but oh well. A lot of tutorials on YouTube that are really
Yeah.
good. Yeah. And I am on Instagram. That's probably the easiest one to find.
Mhm.
Well, you can search for Loki on Instagram, and I pretty much just show up